Well, hello, everybody. Super Wildcard weekend is upon us. It's here. I hope everyone is warm and happy and dry in their house, and that means you're not at the San Francisco Seattle game, which is going to be neither warm nor dry nor sunny or any of those great things we like to associate. Not football weather, according to Steve Weich. Sounds like it might lighten up a little later in the day, but right now it's raining heavily and it's a mess, and I don't know if this evens the playing field a little bit. Does it make me just want to avoid this game? You all know me. I'm weather and injury agnostic because I'm old and mean spirited. I don't care about that nonsense. It's football, damn it. We play. So we'll talk about that in a moment. Hello, everybody. Mr. Gus. Happy Jeff Wilson Day to you, sir. Hello, JR. Glad everyone can make it. We'll see what kind of crowd we get. If you have questions, I'll be happy to take them. A few things going on, not game day related. Let's run through a couple of those things real quick. Sean McVay back with the Los Angeles Rams. I'm surprised, right? Is anyone else surprised? Did anyone else just get the feeling this was like basically done? You're hearing the news that they're letting assistants go away. Now he's kind of trying to shore that up, but it was a quick decision, and it was a decision I didn't expect, right? I totally expected this to go the other way. Totally expect. Maybe there's just not the big TV money. Good morning, Andrea. Thanks for coming. Maybe the TV money last year. I mean, the Amazon money was there. Maybe ESPN money was there, and now all that money maybe is not as much or as copious or as easy to come by. Some of those roles filled. Although you would think that Amazon would kick Herb Street to the curb in no time flat if they thought they could get McVay. But anyway, I think I was surprised. It seemed like he had just had enough. Maybe didn't want to have part of this mess that they've created. Look, they've got a mess in Los Angeles. They are going to extend Matthew Stafford, it sounds like, or rework his contract to keep him at a more reasonable price. He said he's going to come back, and maybe that's enough for Sean McVay to hang his hat on. I mean, look, okay, Cooper Kupp's pretty good, right? Cam Akers was pretty good down the stretch. Maybe feels like he's got some things to build on, right? And I get it. Maybe Allen Robinson in year 2 will come around. Not drafting him like that, but maybe it's possible. He's got some good pieces in place. The offensive line was a mess this year, so he's got a couple good pieces in place, and the offensive line was a mess. And we'll see what of his coaches stick around. Raheem Morris getting a lot of run and a lot of interviews for head coaching roles. In I guess not surprising, but maybe not as good news. Dennis Allen returns as the head coach of the Saints, just like we all hoped. I think Saints fans did not hope this. The hashtag fire Dennis rolling along was for naught. He's out of the picture there. A couple other things. Aaron Rodgers, prepare for another offseason or at least some period of angst and drama surrounding his return or not return. My guess is there's 60 million reasons for him to return, and probably they will prevail in the end. But I thought he was really honest and open and kind of like not disingenuous at all. Like I think maybe he's probably less disingenuous and maybe not extremely popular with the media. But he just laid it out. He said, look, I don't know what's going to happen. We got to have conversations. And we got to work through it. And they started those conversations this week. Brian Gutekunst, the general manager of the team, talked about it and said, yeah, we're, in the process. And I think, nobody was happy with the way the season turned out. And but there's reasons for hope there, too. I mean, Christian Watson turns out to be a pretty good playmaking component. And, maybe add another receiver or something. But, I mean, Romeo Doubs coming along, Alan Lazard, good enough. Alan Lazard's future uncertain with the club. So just interesting how that one will play out. Lamar Jackson, won't be playing this week, but the Ravens apparently still all in on re-signing him to a long-term deal. He wants all guaranteed money, as every quarterback will, from now until the end of time. I don't know that all of them will get it. Some of them wanted it. There have been quarterback signings since the Deshaun Watson deal, the fully guaranteed contract he got from Cleveland, and that weren't fully guaranteed. Kyler Murray, for example. So we'll see. We'll see where, basically Derek Carr has, said his goodbyes to Las Vegas this week. We'll see where he ends up. I think Derek Carr is a very good quarterback. Maybe not a great quarterback, but there's probably a lot of teams out there that wish they had a very good quarterback. They do not currently have one. So we'll see how that plays out. The Raiders are exploring trade avenues. He's not getting traded. He's going to make them cut him. Why would he get traded? This is, he has a no trade clause, number one, so he can put the kibosh on anything. Why not just wait and get a new deal with a new team and figure something else out? So we'll see. Have the team of his choice and create a little bidding war. It seems to make perfect sense. JR wants to know if I think Mayfield starts for someone next year. I don't think so. But again, in a league where there are not 32 starting caliber quarterbacks, it's entirely possible. I think he maybe winds up back in Los Angeles as a backup, and maybe it's a good place for him for a year or so. And we'll see if he can reinvent himself completely. It was a great end of the season run, no doubt about it. Was it great, or was it just way better than we expected, right? Because it seemed like it should have been a disaster, because pretty much everything had been there. So he was like a bright light at the end of that season. So we'll see what goes on with him. So those are a couple of things we'll be watching going forward. There are games this weekend, Super Wildcard weekend games. They start today. Again, I mentioned at the top, I'm pretty much weather agnostic, but weather is going to be an issue in San Francisco. Look, Randy, I know Steve Weiss from NFL Network put out a short clip on his Twitter this morning. It doesn't look good, right? And it's going to rain all day. It sounds like it maybe will lighten up in the second half. Does this keep anyone from drafting or playing or lining up? I mean, I might dial back. I don't know how invested I'm going to be in the Saturday slate as is. I got this show. I got a. By the way, if you're doing nothing later this afternoon, you can catch me on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. Football Diehards, we're usually 8 to 11 or have been 8 to 11 on Saturday nights. We're going to go to 3 to 5 through January. And then there'll be a new time after we get past the Super Bowl. We'll go back to once a week for a little while in the off season. So watch for that. But for today, it's 3 to 5. Dempsey will be away doing Jaguars-y things, and Michael Fabiano will get the great honor of joining me on Football Diehards on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. So anyway, so we'll have some live look-ins to that early game, the San Francisco game, Seattle game. Interesting game. No major injury issues in that game for us to worry about, right? Everyone's pretty healthy, or the players we're interested in. Ken Walker came off the injury report. Tyler Lockett's off the injury report for San Francisco. Christian McCaffrey's off the injury report. Christian McCaffrey's very good, right? He's been rocking. It's Seattle's been a little better against the pass, but they're not a great defense by any means. I think we're all playing the pieces we've been playing. I like Brock Purdy. Like if it was a neutral weather day, and there weren't other quarterbacks I liked, and some of those other quarterbacks we'll talk about over the course of this program. I'm looking at you, Daniel Jones. But look, he's been great, and I think when you're investing in Brock Purdy, you're investing in that scheme and the supporting cast, and it's phenomenal, right? Brandon Ayuk's been playing well enough. Deebo Samuel's back. George Kittle's been on fire. But mostly, Brock Purdy has been on fire. I mean, there's no other way to put it. Let's just run down some of the numbers from the recent, I want to say the last 6 games have been pretty phenomenal. He's led the league with 112 passer rating over the last 6 weeks. He's completed 68% of his passes over that time. 1,308 yards, 13 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions. Had a rushing touchdown in there. So again, you're kind of investing in the supporting cast as much as him. Like him, he's good. He's good enough. But Christian McCaffrey has been on fire as well those last 6 games. I think he's got 101 carries, 505 yards, 4 touchdowns. Has 27 catches for 262 yards and 3 touchdowns over that span. That's a pretty good run-up, right? I mean, he's doing all the Christian McCaffrey-esque things we would like. Who will be – good morning, Dave. It is a beautiful day for Saturday football. Thanks for making it. Who will be the Niners quarterback next year? That's a great question. A lot of that's to be determined probably over the course of this postseason, right? I think San Francisco is a Super Bowl pick for me. I have them going all the way to the Super Bowl, taking down Philadelphia in the conference championship round, and going on to the Super Bowl against the Buffalo Bills. And if my predictions come true, how are they not going to keep Brock Purdy in there, right? I mean, you've got an unknown guy, an unknown commodity, not an unknown guy, an unknown commodity still, a work in progress in Trey Lance. And I'm guessing, it's fair to say that Brock Purdy's still a work in progress because he is, but the work is going a lot better. there's something to be said for someone who, fits the scheme and makes that work. So, um, based on the level of success he's had, I don't know why you would go back to Trey Lance other than the investment in him. I don't think that's how teams tend to do this. They tend to play their success. So, it very much could be Purdy, but it's going to be Lance or Purdy. How about we break it down to that? And as I sit here now, I think it's going to be Purdy. Good morning, Mr. Scampers. Pleasure having you here. So anyway, the rain is going to be a real thing today. So we'll deal with that. I mean, you could easily avoid this game. I'm feeling like I'm going to just play a Sunday slate anyway. But 49ers, Seattle, what? Seattle's pass defense ranks 31st in the league after catch allowed per reception. That's a big stat when you're playing against the likes of Deebo Samuel, a great yards after the catch guy, George Kittle, a fantastic yards after the catch guy, Christian McCaffrey, a fantastic guy. McCaffrey and Samuel rank second and third in yards per catch, yards after the catch per game. So that's a favorable matchup there. Seattle, Geno Smith playing well. I mean, has the most passing yards in Seahawks history, but it hasn't been great the last couple games. So watch that. Kenneth Walker, tough matchup for him. I do like Tyler Lockett slightly over DK Metcalf, but you can play either one. They're both fantastic. I think it's a hell of a lot easier to throw against San Francisco than to run against them. Andrea's picking with me. San Francisco and Bills. Great minds think alike. Brian Larkin thinking way ahead. If Brock Purdy is the starter next year, would Kittle's value skyrocket? Yes, absolutely. Would Kittle maybe move ahead of Mark Andrews based on this year? So break out my corny cliche because I think it's always has some merit. When we're going into each season, don't draft last year's best team. Right? It sounds simple. And you're going to draft a lot of last year's best guys because you almost have to. If you're drafting in the first round, you're drafting a lot of last year's best guys, right? It's just the nature of the beast and where you're able to get players, based on the perceived value. But if Kittle's price will go up for sure if Brock Purdy is a starter next year. We've seen this late season run of success. He's been phenomenal. I want to say, what is it? 5 touchdowns? I have to look without being so I'm not entirely stupid. Kittle. Bring up those numbers. Yeah, it's been good, right? Over the last, since week 15 in particular. 7 touchdowns. That's a lot of touchdowns since week 15 against Seattle. And against Seattle, he had a multi-touchdown game. So in a lot of these games this weekend, we've got teams that have played each other recently. The recency bias will probably fit in, push on all of us a little bit in this one, but it's nice to have that, information to fall back on in recent games. So George Kittle did have a big game. Brandon Ayuk's on, been ramping it up a little bit and playing well. Christian McCaffrey, Elijah Mitchell. I think all these are playable commodities here on the other side of the ball. Playable commodities are Geno Smith, the Lockett, Metcalf. I mean, you can take a chance on Noah Fant, I suppose, but you could also take a chance on any of those tight ends. You're throwing a dart with any of them. And also Kenneth Walker. Like San Francisco's given up a couple rushing touchdowns the last few games, so there's that, but it's not easy to run against them. Not easy at all. Not a pleasant circumstance. What did Walker? I looked last night at what Walker did in the last game. Let's revisit this. So 12 carries, 47 yards. Caught 4 passes though for another 32 yards. So it wasn't like a totally bereft fantasy day. I think he's I don't want to say a great contrarian play, but definitely a contrarian play. People are not going to be playing him, and touchdowns are possible here. Onesies strategy for one and done. I love it, but only after you have to commit to one side of the bracket after one of your onesie wins. Yes. Yeah, you can do it like that. Yes, absolutely. And what we're talking about here is just in the, if you're in postseason tournaments where it's kind of a one and done, you can only use players once. You kind of, I've always just take a side, right? AFC, NFC, pick a conference to play your onesie guys up until the Super Bowl, so you for sure have a quarterback remaining, or if you use kickers or defenses or even tight ends to a degree, right? So yeah, I think that's a safe approach. It makes sure you don't have any holes in your rosters, and yes, you don't have to commit until one side after one of your onesie wins. Yes, this is a true words. Okay, Jacksonville against the Chargers. Injury issues. Brandon Staley says he loves playing guys in games that are meaningless, even when they get hurt. Even when they get hurt so bad, they're going to miss a couple weeks, and that's the case with Mike Williams. Initial x-rays were clear. Subsequent scans were clear. They thought it was muscle spasms. It was not. It was the transverse process fracture. Transverse process fracture. We keep hearing about these. There's tiny little bones along the spine that ligaments hook onto and whatnot. Apparently very painful. Not like, permanently damaging, but something that is hard to play through. Kenny Golladay totally winning the Super Bowl MVP if he wins. It makes that catch. Kenny Golladay. What a catch that was, man. It's just a reminder of, what could be or what could have been. It's just so weird that is it just disinterest? It's hard to say. It's hard to imagine. Is he just a lousy fit? Brian Daboll seems like a good enough offensive mind that he can figure out the things that this guy does well when you're that invested in. So just a little bit of a mystery there. Why this receiving core? Think about it. Think about this receiving core. Darius Slayton, Isaiah Hodgins, Richie James. They're all solid as hell. They're all playing quite well. They're really good. Just the names are unexpected. Maybe the level of production, even a little bit unexpected for them. Richie James, a good play this week on the daily sites because he's dirt cheap. Dirt cheap, and had a great game against Minnesota last time. I've been a Hodgins guy all along. Now I'm a little more Jamesy this week. My friend Matt Waldman has been Jamesy all along. I keep saying, stop with the Isaiah Hodgins slander every time he says something nice about Richie James. This week, I'm slandering Hodgins. Not really. I'm just like Richie James. So the Jaguars, the Chargers, no Mike Williams. That's an issue, right? Justin Herbert's kind of hot streak rise over the tail end of the season seems to have a little something to do with having both Keenan Allen and Mike Williams on the field simultaneously, something they have not been a lot this season, right? That's been a problem when they've been on the field. I think the last 4 games. I think it's only been, what are the numbers here? I have numbers on this, people. Numbers matter. Let's see. With Allen and Williams playing, they've only played 4 games together, week 14 to 17 start to finish. So it's been a big problem. But Herbert's been on a roll when those guys have been on the field. So can Josh Palmer step up enough? DeAndre Carter step up enough? We'll see today. I think this is an interesting game. I think this one could go either way. Just find the numbers here. Keenan Allen has been a phenomenally consistent, less so Mike Williams, but the upside there is great. Austin Eckler, obviously, a great play. Travis Etienne, great matchup in this game, right? I'm not, don't want to overlook him as well. So a lot of good plays in this game. I think Herbert and Lawrence are kind of interchangeable for me. The price is pretty similar. This seems like a game. Christian Kirk, super playable. This is another one where they played earlier this season. I think you can throw that one out. It's been long enough ago, but the Jaguars romped on them. James Robinson ran for over 100 yards. That's how long ago it's been. So there's that. So could this be a big Travis Etienne game? What is it about Travis Etienne, man? Looks like he's more than capable of being a good receiving asset. They just don't throw him the damn ball. It would be a nice value added. Is this the time they do it in a super good matchup, in a plus matchup against this Charger defense that's laid down for many a running back? I think both running backs in this game are good plays. Beyond that, Evan Ingram, hard not to play him. He's not like overpriced, I don't think, this weekend. So a decent play there. Gerald Everett, a little less interested in. I keep telling you, the perception to me is all season is Gerald Everett has been better than my feeling is he's better than when I look at what the numbers are. I go, it's not that good, not that impressive. He has some moments, but it hasn't been as much upside. I think we can all remember back to the summer. Daniel Popper, the athletic beat writer, wrote about all the great plans and the things they saw in practice and all the creative ways they were using him. I'm not seeing as much of that now that it's actually the regular season, or once the regular season started. It seemed to me. Perceptions. We get perceptions in our mind, right? And you kind of got to go look at the numbers and say, oh, wow, my perception is totally not based in reality. Josh Palmer, definitely in play now, Andrea. I think so, for sure. It's always, definitely been next man up for me. I mean, you can make an argument that DeAndre Carter's been pretty effective too, but definitely Palmer, the guy that I would look to next. So injury report there. Trevor Lawrence on the other side of the ball, of course, is listed as questionable, but not questionable at all. Everyone knows that. Let's get into the Sunday game. Start with the early game, Dolphins and Bills. Skylar Thompson is going to start at quarterback, as noted at the top of the chat by Mr. Gus17. It's Jeff Wilson day. Look, it was a pretty good game last time for Mostert. Last two games, Mostert has a broken thumb, will not play. Tua Tagovailoa ruled out. Teddy Bridgewater listed as questionable. Cedric Wilson questionable as well. Jalen Waddle off the injury report. So Mostert ran for 136 yards against them last month and looked really good. Ran really hard. He was running really hard this past week against the Jets as well, and sad to see him go down. But Jeff Wilson gets a great opportunity against the defense. It's not like an impenetrable wall. So, and what do the Dolphins want to do here, right? The Dolphins want to run the ball. They want to keep the ball out of Buffalo's hands. It's their only hope. Jalen Waddle has 100 receiving yards in each of the team's regular season games against the Bills. They played twice, remember, early in the season. Per ESPN, only one player in the past 20 seasons has gained to 100-plus receiving yards in 3 straight games against Buffalo. That would be Rob Gronkowski. Wow. Interesting. Josh Allen has had great success in those games as well. He's passed for well over 700 yards. He ran for well over 100 in the first game. Had 70-plus in the second game. So you're playing Josh Allen. You're playing Stephon Diggs. After that, who are you playing? I mean, I think so the Bills are an interesting offense in that you could play. And by the way, great news on DeMar Hamlin, right? Out of the hospital. Fantastic how this has progressed quickly, and we got, really good news on that from what was a really scary situation, being live on the air on Sirius when that went down, or going live on the air. So tough situation that came out pretty well. By the way, can we just, I'm going to go back to this. I've got a bone to pick with everybody, right? A lot of people really mad about how the NFL handled that, right? Like, they wanted them to warm up and play. They gave them 5 minutes, and of course they did. I mean, we don't see a lot of games that are stopped due to injury. And this was a super unique situation, right? So at some point, did somebody say, yeah, let's get ready to play? Yes, I bet they did. At some point, did somebody say, hey, we give them 5 minutes to warm up? Yeah, probably somebody did. Did cooler heads prevail and was the right decision made in the end? Yes, it was. So I know a lot of people really mad that, maybe somebody lied or somebody did something. Look, it was I think we could grant these people a little grace. It was a tough decision made under tough circumstances, under the spotlight, the national glare of one of the biggest stages in sports every week. So just, I'm not an apologist for the NFL, but I mean, really, people, we've got to dial back our expectations on some of these situations. Perfect rarely happens under the worst circumstances. And actually, especially in a case where it ended up with like the best outcome possible to me, right? Where they said, look, man, this is bad. The players aren't ready to deal with this. Credit to Sean McDermott for, clearly standing his ground. Zach Taylor for backing it up. The players for standing their ground. I mean, it just seemed like they arrived at the right spot, even if the sausage making in between was not great. Anyway, soapbox, climbing down. Great news on DeMar Hamlin. Great news for this game is, though, you can play Josh Allen, you can play Stephon Diggs, and like I said, after that, you could kind of pick your poison. I could play any of these guys, right? I could play Devin Singletary. I could play James Cook. I could play Gabe Davis, even though I don't really think Gabe Davis is that great of a fantasy prospect. I understand why and where you want to use him, right? And so I'll never forgive Gabe Davis for going as high in the draft as he did. I'm sorry, Gabe. I apologize for that. But Isaiah McKenzie probably has, a spot. I mean, Dawson Knox is, I guess Dawson Knox has kind of climbed into the, hey, I'm going to play him category, right? He's moved there, touchdown in 4 straight games. This is an unusually stacked week at tight end, right? When you think about it, based on, just how the regular season played out. There weren't a lot of tight ends. It seems like this week there's a lot of tight ends, right? Kittle, Hawkinson, Andrews, Knox, Schultz, Ingram, Hayden Hurst. I mean, I could play any of these guys. Gerald Everett. I've already badmouthed them. But, I mean, you get the point. No offense. I mean, there's a lot of playable commodities here at tight end this week where it seemed like a season without a lot of tight ends. and like that. Yeah, James Cook, who are you guys playing on Buffalo? Who's your pick this week? Who do you think is the guy that's going to have the big game, not named Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen? Because that seems to be the defining point. On the other side of the ball, Tyreek Hill, I wrote my DFS 3 and out column. I'm kind of out on him. You should never be out on Tyreek Hill. The problem for, and I'm not really, is the I guess for me, if like Hill, you look back to the last game, they kind of held him in check. Last year for the Chiefs, he had two great games, including two great games. The playoff game, I mean, he was essentially the game-winning element. I'm not sure that Skylar Thompson's the guy I want throwing the ball. I'm not sure that this just doesn't seem a great circumstance. So the price to me is a little bit high for the risk, but obviously in tournament play, it's maybe a little bit of a contrarian play for him. I have to check ownership percentages, but people are going to be off him for the obvious reason, and he's capable of making a big play any damn time because he's Tyreek Hill, the cheetah, the real cheetah. Scampers liking the tight ends, loving Knox. I like Knox a lot too. Scampers running Singletary over Cook, Waddle over Hill today. See, I think these are reasonable things. But I do think for both those guys, it's fair to, both Miami receivers, either of them could take a short pass and, go take it to house any moment, right? So I think there's something worthwhile there. Thompson, what is he going to do? It's his first career playoff start. He's got to not turn the ball over. He's got to make some big plays. We'll see if he can pull that off. The Giants at the Vikings. This is my favorite game. Minnesota -3. The over-under is 48. I'm taking the over because I always take the over. Got two great quarterbacks, I think. To me, two playable quarterbacks. I like Daniel Jones an awful lot just because of the rushing equity. I think quarterbacks not named Josh Allen. Pretty obvious nobody has the rushing bandwidth that Daniel Jones, and maybe they'll lean on that a little more heavily. It's a great matchup. These teams played in week 16, I guess it was, and it was a 51-point game, one on the field goal, 61-yard field goal right at the last moment. Justin Jefferson ran rampant. Saquon Barkley ran rampant. All the receiving pieces that we were talking about earlier for the Giants ran rampant. So a lot to like in this game. I like a lot about it. I like the coaches too. I think both these hires turned out to be pretty good, and I'm wondering how teams will be looking at Brian Daboll and trying to understand teams that are looking for coaches right now. Denver in particular. How did we get Nathaniel Hackett and they got Brian Daboll? What did they see that we didn't see? What did we see that we shouldn't have seen? Brian Daboll's turned out to be a great hire, and players are buying in. I think my opinion, I think he feels like he has something in Daniel Jones. I think Daniel Jones will be back with the team. I know they didn't pick up the fifth-year option. I think they'll keep both him. There's been reporting that they'll keep both Jones and Saquon Barkley, who they had to pay $7 million to this year. He wasn't going anywhere, but they'll work out a deal with him and keep those pieces in place. And what's the key here for me on the coaches? It's when they get enough success early to get buy-in from the players, right? And I think Kevin O'Connell has that as well. We'll see. Mike McDaniel's, the book's still out on him a little bit, but had some rough circumstances there with the quarterback issues. But that seems to be the key, getting the players to buy in. I don't know Brian Larkin. I'll have to look that up. I will have to Google that information. I think it's possible. I know Tom Brady, and we'll talk about this game in a minute. I know Tom Brady will be I think this game he will tie every team but one for his individual playoff wins will rank second amongst all the playoff wins, right? So like the Patriots he'll have 36 after this game. That'll tie him with the Steelers and Packers for the most playoff wins in postseason history. Yes, I'm comparing an individual's record to team records. And the Patriots have one more than that. They have like 37 wins. It's crazy, right? How the hell does Tom Brady do this? 2023, Hopkins to the Giants, possible. DeAndre Hopkins is going to be a very popular name. Depends on how teams view him. I wonder if the Giants don't feel like they've already gone down this path with big dollar receivers, and DeAndre Hopkins will be a big dollar receiver. I'm not comparing Hopkins' skill sets and abilities with that of Kenny Golladay. They are distinctly different characters, but the circumstances, you have to wonder if the Giants will be as interested in investing big time capital after they got great success from some unsung heroes in Richie James, Isaiah Hodgins, and Darius Slayton. Do I think Singletary will be punished for fumbling Week 18, making Cook the better play? Honestly, I feel like it's a crapshoot with either of them, right? I think you're taking your chances with either of them, and you could entirely be right. I think they have a lot of confidence in Singletary in general, so I doubt he'll be punished. But I do think this is a case where either of these guys, playing either is a risky proposition for that reason. They are both more than capable, and it's hard to figure out who's going to have the hot hand right off the bat. My default going into Singletary. So so to put a finer point on it, Mark, I don't think I've heard any rumors or discussion that they may, that the fumble may cost him. And my guess is they have enough history with him that they'll not punish him for it. So Cook remains like the second choice for me, but a choice that could easily outperform Singletary, and that's the reason I stay away from him. He really did. Mr. Scamper is mentioning Mike McDaniel had such terrible circumstances. He's like really a unique character. Mike McDaniels has a way different vibe than a lot of the coaches. An interesting guy, seems to have total buy-in from his players, and definitely made some mistakes. Did he make any Brandon Staley level mistakes? I mean, Brandon Staley's sitting here like he will yell at you if you tell him that he should not have played his starters in that game. And maybe he's right? Like maybe you should play your starters. But like you go back to some of the losses he's had where they've come up short based on analytics-driven decisions, and he really stridently sticks by those, which is fine. But I mean, at some point you need to win. Mike Dempsey and I were speaking on the Football Diehards radio program last night about the possibility. Could Brandon Staley get fired if they lose this game tonight? I think it's possible, right? I mean, it's been a couple of years without a great deal of postseason success. Sean Payton out there lurking around as, a lot of people, a lot of rumors and speculation that maybe that would be a good landing spot for him. Great weather, quarterback, situation is good for the long term. A lot of things he likes. His former offensive coordinator is already there. I don't know if that would keep him around, but just interesting possibilities there. So we'll see. But I would agree with you, Scampers. I've been pretty keen on Mike McDaniels. A pretty sharp offensive mind, no doubt about it. Would like to see him have all his pieces in place to execute that. And that's a big question mark for the Miami Dolphins this offseason is what the hell do they do with Tua Tagovailoa, right? I mean, the human aspect of this aside, right? Because there is that. And this guy is dealing with obviously serious issues that are going to impact his long-term future. And, we can have a different conversation maybe over the offseason about how players should play. I'm speaking as someone who stopped playing football because of concussion, a really bad concussion. So I get it, right? It's a tough situation. Football players want to play football. They don't care about that stuff, right? He doesn't care about that stuff. And, obviously as young people, it's like something Ryan Clark said after the DeMar Hamlin thing. When he was 24, he didn't even know he could die, right? I mean, you don't view yourself the same way. I'm an old man now. I view myself much differently than I did then. And the immortality aspect is real. And, how much do we protect players from themselves? That's a question. That's somewhere we're going to have to get to, right? And the Dolphins are going to have to wrestle with these decisions over the offseason, and what they do with the quarterback position going forward is going to be tough. Matthew Whitfield, hello, Matt. Do you think Rodgers is back next year? And if so, what do you think the Packers need to do in free agency and or draft? I think Rodgers is back. My guess, that's been my hunch all along. This deal was set up for him to return. There's a lot of money in it for him. Don't think this is a great orchestration underway to get him to Las Vegas to rejoin Devontae Adams, which would be like a kind of like a fantasy football kind of dream situation, right? I think they addressed the receiver position pretty damn well, right? I think Christian Watson was a pretty good pick where they drafted him. They didn't overpay. They got a great player who brings them some really explosive capability. I like all that. They probably need upgrades. The offensive line play could be better. I think the running back's set. They got a lot of bodies at tight end. Probably could still use some receiving help. Maybe they'll add another veteran to work it out. But I think first and foremost, they need to decide what they want to do, right? And I think, Rodgers has been pretty open and honest about where he's at. I think the team, is having the conversations with him. It started this week. He met with them Tuesday and Wednesday, and they had the initial talks. But like Aaron Rodgers says, you got to give it time to let the emotions settle down, right? I mean, when was the last time you made a good decision when emotion was involved? I can't. I've never made a good decision when emotion was involved, right? I didn't divorce myself. And that's, talk a lot about that, about fantasy football is, just like in life, divorce emotion from the decision. Just like you divorce the name from the numbers when you're trying to assess lineup decisions, right? I mean, your investment that goes along, the history associated with a name, the things that prevent us or cause fears and keep us from maybe making the best decisions or best removed from the situation. So I'm kudos to Aaron Rodgers for taking that time. Also said he wasn't going to hold them hostage. So doesn't sound like this will be an extended period. He'll go have some mild hallucinogenics, do some yoga, have some tea, relax, RELAX, all those things. But I think he's back, man. Josh Costin, nothing to ask. Want to say thanks for the advice throughout the year. Help me get my championship. Bragging rights over the family. That's what matters. That is exactly correct. All right. So moving back to the games, I'd like the Minnesota Vikings to win this game. But I mean, there's like enough non-defense here going on that anything could happen, and I'm hoping for a huge fantasy outcome. Ravens and Bengals, not as excited about the Sunday night game. Cincinnati, I mean, you're going to play Joe Burrow, but you just wonder, right? He hasn't been great against the Ravens. Has 2 TD passes in 2 meetings against the Ravens. They've allowed the second fewest touchdown passes since week 3, only 13. So Bengals wide receivers have the most receiving yards after contact in the NFL as a group. 100 more receiving yards after contact than any other team in the NFL. Jamar Chase ranks second behind Debo among all wide receivers in receiving yards after contact this season. So some interesting things there. Is this going to be a running back game? Is it going to be all Joe Mixon, J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards on the injury front, off the injury report? Lamar Jackson, of course, will not play. Looks like Tyler Huntley will play, for what that's worth. For the Bengals, everyone's off the injury report. They're down in another offensive lineman, so that could be an issue as well. Not enthusiastic about this game. What's the over-under here? 40.5 points. Yeah. Cincinnati, 9.5 point favorite. Woo! That's a big deal. That's a big spread. Some of these spreads are pretty big today, right? Let me just go back and look. What was San Francisco? I think that one's probably closing up. And San Francisco minus 9.5. Jacksonville. LA's favored, by the way, in that game, which is interesting. It's the Dolphins and Bills, minus 13 for Buffalo's 13-point favorite, 43.5 point over-under in that one. Giants Vikings, the 48-point over-under, Minnesota 3-point favorite. That one, I think that sounds about right. So that 40.5 over-under, bleh. Just not interested. Mark Andrews, I mean, there's some good outlier plays here, and, Tyler Boyd, I think, is fair priced and I could play him. But, besides Mixon, Dobbins, I guess I'll play Andrews. Outside of that, I like Hayden Hurst as kind of a tournament play. I know Al Zeidenfeld pointed out this week his red zone targets against the Ravens is higher than against the whole, right? So there's something to hang your hat on there. Besides, he's very cheap. I think who are the DFS plays we're all looking at? Richie James, dirt cheap. How much is Noah Brown? It's like Noah Brown, $3,000. I want to say on DraftKings, dirt cheap as well. Anyway. So then we get to the Cowboys and the Buccaneers. Dallas is favored. I don't think they should be. It's at Tampa Bay. The Bucs defense was pretty good in the first game. They played week 1. So not a lot to, I don't think you can translate a lot over. Tom Brady's playing a hell of a lot better than he has been for most of the season. Mike Evans has started to come on. Cowboys secondary. Their pass rush has been the thing that's kind of carried them and made them really tough. Hasn't been as great recently. So I think, Mike Evans, obviously Chris Godwin, all reasonable plays. CeeDee Lamb, a great play here as well. To me, Dalton Schultz, really solid, always an overlooked tight end commodity there. So I'm probably not going to get heavily into that game. For Leonard Fournette had a great game in week 1, right? Well, what was his numbers? Ugh. It was something ridiculous. I want to say 100 plus, well over 100 yards rushing. Now I have to look. 127 yards rushing, 6 yards a carry against the Cowboys, and you can run against them. Mike Evans had 5 catches, 71 yards, and a touchdown in that game. Chris Godwin just working his way back in, so caught 3 passes, didn't do a heck of a lot. All right, so those are the games. Looks very exciting. It's a great weekend. I think, Emil and I were talking about this before the show, and I was talking about it on the radio last night. We fantasy managers, we go through the season. Do you all watch Red Zone? Or, how do you consume the games? How do you consume a Sunday? What's the pattern? I sit down, I do my pregame show, and as soon as the game started, I crank up the Red Zone, crank up multiple other screens with various things going on, whether it's stats, my tweet deck, of course, a lot going on in Red Zone. So we go from watching, a group of games, and then I like to watch the replays on the NFL app afterwards, the condensed games. I think it's really handy while I'm working on Monday and Tuesday. You can just watch them over and over and over. And if there's something that really raises your attention, I don't want to advertise for the NFL. They don't need it, but I think that app is great. And I think the ability to watch the all 22 if you want to is fantastic and helpful. The condensed games are great. But on Sunday, Red Zone, another game on the side. That's kind of think what I think that's what most people do. I've done it before. It depends on how many screens I have up. I'll have like Red Zone and 1 or 2 games on the side. But I think that's, we're all consuming multiple games at once. So one of the things I really like about the postseason, aside from the fact that I don't have to work as much, is also that you watch one game at a time, right? And it's, you go from, we're still playing fantasy right now. We're talking about it, but you also get to switch a little more into NFL fan mode and watch a game kind of more organically and in a different way. You can kind of watch the ebbs and flows and the strategies and watch it. You get a little better feeling for how offensive coordinators are maybe setting up the defense with their play calling, or how defenses are baiting offenses into doing things. And you can watch the personnel changes and maybe see, oh yeah, they're going to try and hit that guy. They bring in a substitute, or someone has to leave the game momentarily. And there's just so much more nuance than you catch when we're mass consuming a Sunday, all at once. And so for me, it's just a really enjoyable, part of the year where it slows down and the games slow down. So Scamper's you used to hate Red Zone. I like to feel the flow of the game too, but in the season, I'm just more interested in what everyone's doing. And I love, I mean, Red Zone for me is just like a great way to keep up with everything at once, right? And I mean, we want all those inputs, and like Emil and I kind of joke sometimes. We're angry when the afternoon slate is slim because there's not enough games to fuel it, right? We want to see more. It's almost like you're mainlining football. I got to have it all at once. Put the fire hose down your mouth and turn it on high. Quench that football thirst all at once. So. But that's the kind of the postseason vibe. I love that part of the. I love that part. I like So one of the cool things about my job is it keeps me very busy and out of trouble, right? I mean, it's pretty time intensive. I mean, I'm not going to sit here. It's not a complaint or anything. It just is what it is. You put in a lot of time, and so we get to this point of the year where things slow down, and that slowdown is joyous. And part of that slowdown is watching games one game at a time. And it's just so fun, and it's almost like a renewed pleasure in just being a football fan as opposed to a fantasy person, even while I'm still playing the fantasy. All right, how many lineups you guys putting in this week? I'm just curious, how are you playing this week? Are you playing in tournaments, or you just, in like postseason contests, or are you just diving full into the daily? Are you playing single day slates? How much are you doing it? Mr. Gus, watch Sunday Tickets Fantasy Channel. It's the Red Zone, yeah. Yeah, I'm familiar with work with some of the people on that very program. A good bunch, by the way. So yeah, I kind of when did I get out of DirecTV? It's been a number of years. But yeah, that's a good people on that show. I'm in 3 one and dones and 3 multipliers. Fair enough. Just wondering, I'm in DFS. I'm pretty much I just like tournaments. I'm not out there, grinding the grinding the head-to-heads, 50-50 thing. 3-game afternoon slate, but it has Colts and Broncos games. Right, that's Mr. Scampers. 3-game afternoon slate, but it has the Colts Broncos games. Yeah, that's always the miserable part. Like, oh wow, that's a bad game. Boy, some of the primetime games this year. I feel like we say this every year. It seems like in real time. No playoff one and done. I don't know why no. Well, I do know why. Because it's hard to get people. Like the one and done is a tightrope walk every week, right? It's horrifying. Because you don't know how the caller is going to be as into it as they need to be. I mean, for the most part, it's been great, right? Don't get me wrong, but it's a little bit of contest, and you just don't get the same level of call in. So that's probably why. I maybe we just don't think about it. Maybe we're just so happy to have survived the regular season one and done that we're like, okay, we made it. Let's not push our luck. That might be it, JR. Entirely possible. Again, if you missed it, I'm Bob Harris. I work at footballdiehards.com. We have a website. That was what it's called, footballdiehards.com. You can go there, find all kinds of great articles and content, great staff of writers that had a fantastic season. And we carry over through the postseason, helping you set up your DFS lineups and playing these contests. We do week-by-week rankings, and we also have a playoff long ranking based on our projected outcomes for the playoff games, which you'll find on the site. Yes, we're afraid. I'm not afraid of that. Mike Dempsey would have a meltdown, though. But you can find all kinds of content that'll keep you going through. I know Reginald James' latest Commish HQ column. He does great work for those columns. They're very entertaining. I'm not a commissioner. I love those columns. Got Drew Phelps prop bets up. We got Jamie Calandro's DFS cash game plays, my tournament plays. Have some Justin Lanero cheap plays there as well. So plenty of content up on the site, video content. The DFS lineup show last night was Friday night with Jamie and Eric Romoff. They always do a great job. Jamie will be joining Fabiano and myself. Again, Dempsey is away today. A Dempsey-free edition of the Football Diehards while he covers the Jaguars. So Fabiano will come on, and I will hound him relentlessly about things until he cries. He hardly ever cries. It's really difficult to make Michael Fabiano cry. Really irritates me. Anyway. So that'll be on today. We are Saturdays for the rest of the postseason on from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll be on Monday, Thursday, and Friday as usual, 10 p.m. Most of those shows will only be 2 hours. Monday night, though, there's a game will be 3 hours. Live look-ins, all that kind of shenanigans, the kind of stuff we usually do. Very enjoyable. Who's winning, the Jaguars or the Chargers? If you listen to Mike Dempsey, it's totally the Jaguars. If you listen to me, it's also the Jaguars. I'm picking the Jaguars. We're picking them as the site. We're using that as our rankings. Chargers are favored. I don't know if the line shifted since Mike Williams got ruled out. Maybe. I don't know. Chargers slight favorite. Their defense has been a little on point. Jaguars was on point the last game. We'll see. I'm going Jaguars in that game, though. Andrea Jags upset as well. That seems reasonable. I want it. Mr. Scampers with the IWATJ hashtag. All right. Well, I think I'm going to get ready to go do the radio program. Do you have any final questions before we dive into the Super Wildcard weekend festivities? Get them in here. Again, you can find me at footballdiehards.com. Find me on Twitter at footballdiehard. Find the site at FFDiehards. Subscribe to this very YouTube channel if you don't already. We would implore you. I see you all hit the like button. I forgot to hit the dislike button. I will do it now. You can hit the dislike button too if you don't like me. It's okay. I'm all right with that. What else? Radio, Monday, Thursday, Friday, 10 p.m., usually till midnight. We'll have some great guests ahead. Today, again, 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time, we'll preview the early afternoon game. We'll have live look-ins. When appropriate, Jamie Calandro will join us on the program with some of his DFS talk as well. It'll be me and Michael Fabiano. We'll poke fun of Dempsey. And we wish you all a pleasant weekend. I appreciate everyone coming. Again, I'll be doing this on Wednesdays, probably on Saturdays, and we'll carry this on the off season. If you have ideas or topics you'd like to hit on over the course of the off season, we'll do the usual stuff. We'll do mock drafts. We'll involve you in some mock drafts. We'll talk dynasty. We'll talk rookies. I didn't like the dislike button. Made me feel icky. Damn it, Scampers. No one likes to feel icky. I'm going to undislike myself. I don't want to make anyone feel. I don't like the dislike button. But yeah, we'll be looking to carry the content over and come up with some things. I know in the coming weeks, in the immediate coming weeks, I'll be doing my top fives by position and my top fives overall, and we can work through those and then maybe predict some players we think are in good spots to rebound or at least have good opportunities to rebound. Maybe some players in some not so good situations to repeat this year's success if they had it. So we'll start digging into those things. Those are my processes. As soon as the season's over, I start trying to identify, obviously your top players at each position, but also the players who disappointed, who might have a chance to turn things around and try to start assessing why they might or might not be able to do that, what kind of factors need to happen for them to rebound if I don't think they will or if I'm not sure. And we'll start working through that process. There is no off season. It's the alter season at footballdiehards.com. Thanks everyone for coming. We will see you Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern time, right here at the Football Diehards YouTube channel. Subscribe, hit the like button, hit the notification bell, do all the things you do on YouTube because I don't know, why not? Bob Harris, over and out.